Welcome everyone to the webinar, Closing the Opportunity Divide, Holistically Building Career Readiness in Young Adults. This webinar is sponsored by CAREERSOURCE Florida. I'm your host this morning, Kathy McDonald, Assistant Director for Network Partnerships at the Florida College Access Network. A few housekeeping items to get us started. We welcome your questions. Please feel free to submit them in the box that you should see on the right side of your computer. If you don't see the question box, just click on that orange tab that's got an arrow in it, and that will open up your dashboard. Second, please share what you're learning on social media. We love to hear what's resonating with you. You can find us on Twitter at FL College Access, and our partners this morning at Europe Jax and at Europe Tampa Bay. Finally, this webinar is being recorded. All materials will be available within a week of the recording. You can also find some handouts and the slides in your dashboard for downloading. I'm so thrilled to welcome on the call this morning guest presenter Theodore Graham, who's the Director of Admissions with Europe Jacksonville. Theo has been highly engaged at the intersection of business and higher education for more than 20 years. Also known as the Professor, Leo works extensively with Jacksonville's Fortune 500 companies to strengthen talent pipelines by recruiting and coaching untapped, diverse young talent. He consistently ranks in the top 10% of more than 2 million professors in America on nationally accredited Rate My Professor. Also partnering with the Annie Ruth Foundation, City Year, Jacksonville Commitment, 100 Black Men of Jacksonville, Generation Jacksonville, 5,000 Role Models of Excellence, and Take Stock in Children, Theo has inspired many and opened bright pathways for underserved youth across Northeast Florida. Under his leadership, more than 400 young adults have joined Europe Jacksonville. Please also welcome on our webinar this morning, Farisa Connell, who is the External Relations Manager with Europe Tampa Bay. Farisa is a Tampa, Florida native and graduate of Florida A&M University. Her professional experience includes working with national nonprofits, writing in publications like Forbes, organizing social justice, environmental advocacy, and GoTV campaign initiatives, and brand and marketing strategy consulting. Her social responsibilities has led her to Europe Tampa Bay. With hopes of impacting communities and providing resources to youth and women, Farisa wants to be an inspiration in her field. Finally, I'm also excited to welcome Sherry Weber on our call today, who's the External Relations Manager with Europe in Jacksonville. A new addition to the Europe team, Sherry works to spread brand awareness of Europe in the Jacksonville market. She wears multiple hats and serves as all-around strategist for external partnerships. With a background in marketing, communications, government, and education, Sherry provides both internal and external support for Europe. And I'm super excited to unveil our new mission for FCAN. We lead the collaborative movement to ensure every Floridian achieves an education beyond high school and a rewarding career. Also new and updated is our vision statement. We seek to build a Florida working together where education is the pathway to economic mobility for all. We accomplish our work in 3 primary ways. First, FCAN's work publishes research and data on evidence-based practices and policy opportunities to strengthen Florida's talent pool. Second, through our local college access networks, we have 17 of them now that represent 82% of the state's population. These organizations are made up of community leaders who come together to create solutions and partnerships to support local talent. Finally, FCAN coordinates 4 College Ready Florida initiatives that support students in continuing their education after high school. Oops, let me back that up 1 second. Our work is guided by our 7 conditions for success, which you can find out more about on our website. Today's webinar features Europe, which is a great example of 2 of these conditions. The first one is opportunity for everyone. We believe that we need to build a talent-strong economy. All Floridians need access to a post-secondary education and the supports to complete it. The second condition is multiple pathways to success. While we love to see students move from high school to college to career, some of us take a meandering path, and we know that Floridians benefit from multiple learning opportunities for academic achievement and career advancement. Another important way we do our work is partnering with statewide and local organizations where our work aligns. One of those organizations whom we are proud to call partners, CAREERSOURCE Florida. We are honored to have them sponsor the webinar this morning, and I'm so pleased to welcome Michelle Denard, CEO of CAREERSOURCE Florida, to share a few words. Welcome, Michelle. Whoops. Let's get you unmuted there. There we go.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here virtually with y'all this morning. CAREERSOURCE Florida is excited to partner with organizations like the Florida College Access Network. We recognize how dedicated you are to ensuring Floridians have access to post-secondary education opportunities. And we, too, are believers in opportunity for everyone, one of your 7 conditions for success. And we work hard every day to make that a reality for our fellow Floridians. So CAREERSOURCE Florida is the governor's principal workforce policy and investment board that is charged with guiding workforce development for the state of Florida. Our network includes 24 local workforce development boards, thank you for that next slide, who work every day to advance our mission, which is to connect employers with qualified, skilled talent and Floridians with employment and career development opportunities to achieve economic prosperity. So today's topic really resonates with me. In 2018, CAREERSOURCE Florida commissioned a study on skills gap in the state. And at the time the survey was completed, we had heard from nearly 54,000 businesses statewide. And that research showed us that foundational skills, soft skills, employability skills were reported twice as often lacking as technical skills. The 2 soft skills most lacking were, no surprise, communication and reliability and time management, skills that we know are critical to success in any industry. CAREERSOURCE Florida collaborates with many of our state partners to help identify ways to close those skills gap and to ensure our state's employers have ready access to workers with the right skills at the right time for the right industries, those that present growth opportunities both for our state and for Floridians. So I encourage you to visit us online at careersourceflorida.com. There you can find more information and the full skills gap analysis that was completed, and you can locate your local workforce development board. If you don't already have a relationship with your local workforce development board, I would encourage you to reach out to them or reach out to me. I'm happy to connect you to learn more about how they can help you and provide connection in your community. Thank you again for letting me join you this morning, and if I can connect you to any resource within the CAREERSOURCE Florida network, I'm happy to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. That is fantastic. So many of our LCANs consider their CAREERSOURCE board in the local community and a trusted and valued partner in the work. So thanks again for joining us. Okay, let's get our attendees participating here. We would like to really get an idea of what your biggest challenges are in engaging and supporting opportunity youth. So you can choose all that apply to you. You can go ahead and start voting here. Is it effective recruitment and retention strategies, helping students build career readiness, balancing high expectations with high support, understanding which student-centric support services to invest in, understanding that we all have limited resources, or forming business education and nonprofit partnerships. Go ahead and vote. And if you don't see something in there, please go ahead and put your answer in the question box so we can get a sense of what are some of the additional challenges people are dealing with. Okay, one more second and I'll go ahead and close it out. Okay, I'm gonna close that out and let's share the results here. So it looks like all of them, but certainly helping students build those important career readiness skills are really key. And both CAREERSOURCE Florida networked regional partners and Europe are particularly skilled at helping students build those. So thanks, you're gonna hear a lot of good information today. Let me go ahead and hide that. Okay, great. So let me get us moving on here. I'm just going to set the stage so we make sure we all understand when we're using the terminology opportunity youth. Another way people often speak about them is disconnected youth in Florida, and what that means is we're speaking of young people ages 16 to 24 who are not in school and not working. They're cut off from pathways that lead to independent, rewarding adulthoods. In Florida, they represent 11.7% of young people in this age range as of 2017, which is on par with the national average of about 11.5%. Still, this represents over 264,000 young people who, with the right support, can build a bright future. That represents over 200, so think about that. When employers are looking to fill hard to fill jobs where we see chronic talent shortages, this is a talent pool that can be tapped and developed in partnership with our higher education institutions, which is what Europe is so successful in doing. The good news is the rate of disconnected youth has been falling since 2010 after the Great Recession, though we don't yet know whether the impact of COVID-19 may see it grow again. So putting intentional practices in place now can help mitigate the virus's impact, which is one of the many reasons we're excited to share what Europe has learned. The rate of disconnection varies by race and ethnicity and by gender. In Florida, disconnection for Black and Latino youth is higher than disconnection for white youth, although all represent unrealized talent. Nationally, disconnected women are more than 4 times as likely to be mothers as their connected female peers. And in rural counties, they have a higher disconnection rate, again, nationally at 18.7% versus about 12% in urban centers and about 11% in suburbs. If you'd like to learn more about the level of disconnected youth in your county, congressional district, or your state, as I know some of you are logging in from other states, please visit measureofamerica.org for more information. They have a wonderful data visualization tool there and a report. We know the best way to help our youth move forward is through education beyond high school and meaningful career experiences along with wraparound support. Europe's high expectations, high support model helps provide that pathway forward, helping students earn college credit and career readiness. And with that, let me transition to Sherry, who's going to introduce the Europe team and help us understand a little bit more about your model and about what folks can take away into their own communities to help more of our students succeed. With that, Sherry, welcome.
Thank you, Kathy. We really appreciate this opportunity to speak with everyone today. And I know that I'm speaking for Theo and for Farissa that we are super excited about sharing a few numbers with you, some outcomes, some maybe tricks of our trade, I guess you would say, that have worked for Europe for the past 20 years and across the nation. So first, we're just going to quickly take a look at the agenda for how we will move through the information, because it is going to be like drinking from a fire hydrant, so I hope you're ready. We are going to talk about the opportunity divide and what we mean when we use that term, because that is part of the Year Up lingo that you will hear us use from time to time. We're going to look at national impact. We are going to share with you, we're going to remove the video for the sake of time and share that with you as our takeaways in an email distribution afterwards. We're going to talk about how the program works and that high support, high expectations model, and what exactly does that mean. We're also going to take a look at some of our national program outcomes so that you can see what sorts of metrics we're developing as a result of this program. We're going to talk a little bit about the transition to virtual spaces during our current environment, and then we're going to give you some calls to action, because we can't let you get away without asking you to do something. And of course, we want to leave time at the end for questions. So that is what we have in store for you today, and I'm going to now pass it off to Theo.
Thank you, Sherry, for that introduction. I also want to thank the Florida College Access Network for hosting this event, and also CareerSource for sponsoring this event. We're happy to present Year Up today. We're 1 year to a career professional training program, and what we're going to be discussing today is what is the opportunity divide, who we serve, and also our impact overall in our program. If you can look at this slide right here, as you can see, 5 million young adults are disconnected from stable career pathways, and all of this can be systematic socioeconomic situations such as poverty, lack of resources, lack of opportunities. But what Year Up do is we meet these young adults where they are, and we offer them a professional training program in addition to academics to allow them to transition and leverage themselves to a professional job in a career with a Fortune 500 company. One of the things that I like to bring to your attention is, where do we recruit from? Where do we serve our students? Because they're disconnected all over the nation. We find students from nonprofit organizations with collaboration. We collaborate with the CareerSource. In addition to that, we also recruit from faith-based organizations and community centers. So talent is everywhere. So we tap into the undetected talent and provide them an opportunity with a professional career within 1 year's time. Next slide, please. Kathy. National impact, we're located all over the nation. Year Up, we were founded in 2000 in Boston. Our CEO and founder, Jared Shertavian, started our first site there. And as you look around the country, we're in different markets. We're in the New York area, Boston, Chicago, the DC, Providence, Rhode Island area. We just opened up a site in Charlotte, North Carolina in 2019. We're in Atlanta, Georgia, Jacksonville, Tampa, which we just opened in 2019 also, and South Florida in Miami. Going out west, we're in Dallas, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Washington, all of the Oakland Bay Area and Silicon Valley area. And as you can see, 18 markets, 26 cities, 33 campuses. I want to circle back to Florida to be very specific. At Year Up, we serve so many students at each particular site, and there's 3 things that have to take place for us to open up a site. 1, we have to have a host college in that particular city. In Jacksonville, our host college is Florida State College of Jacksonville. In Tampa, our host college is St. Pete College, and in Miami, Miami-Dade College. In each city, we serve a metric of students. Jacksonville, we serve 80 students per semester twice a year in the fall and the spring. Tampa serves 40 students per semester, fall and the spring with their host college. And Miami currently is serving 80 students per semester, fall and spring in their particular cities. Next slide, please. This is how it works. Next slide. Okay, so this is our model. It's 1 year to a career. In phase 1 is learning and development, which is 6 months. And as you've heard from all the panel so far, we're trying to solve for the opportunity divide, and that is what we're doing at Year Up. So in our first phase of training, our students are in a rigorous program where they're learning soft skills, hard skills. In addition to that, the professional skills that they need to be successful in business communications. We have different training tracks that we train in. We train in business and IT. So these young adults are taking college classes at their particular college, upwards to 12 to 15 credit hours in that first semester. And in addition, they get those soft skills and hard skills by the Year Up professional training staff, where they're learning how to budget money, time management, how to interview, how to network, how to put out a vision plan for their life, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plans. And, the critical skills, how to communicate effectively with a customer, with a client, whether it's written, oral, or verbal. They're learning all those skills within the first 6 months. And then we match them up with the corporate needs in that particular city with their talent. So in the second 6 months, they go on an internship with a Fortune 500 company, such as Bank of America, JP Morgan, Merrill Lynch, in these particular cities. And these young adults get a chance to showcase all the skills that they've learned within the first 6 months of training at Year Up. Upon graduation from Year Up, phase 3, which is the career and alumni phase, which is the longest phase, these young adults have access to our UPro, Year Up Professional, where they can contact our youth pro and have mobility to relocate all across the nation from one city to the next. So we have young adults relocating from Jacksonville to Tampa, Jacksonville to Miami, Jacksonville to LA, to the West Coast, all because they're part of a Year Up Alumni Services, which gives them mobility for these young adults that don't have that access to opportunity. Throughout the program, they're paid a stipend. They also have a coach. We give them professional training, the business skills, soft skills. They sign a contract. We give them constant feedback throughout the entire model, and they get hands-on training, corporate experience. Next slide, please. Our model is high expectations, high support. So I'll go into detail to break that down. Each student signs a contract when they start Year Up. They start with 150 points. Those points can go up or down based upon them meeting expectations each week. If the meeting expectations mean they have to show up on time, our program is rigorous on time management. It's rigorous on modeling core values. They have to be to their college classes on time. So we do a lot of monitoring of our students' behaviors. It's a behavioral contract that's tied not only to that, but it's also tied to their stipend. Throughout our whole program, our students get paid a stipend. Throughout the entire program, they get paid $50 per week during the first 6 months, and they get $150 per week while on internship. And that contract is tied directly to their point system and also to how much money they earn each week, all right? They take a drug test coming into our program. We have a no tolerance drug policy. Our corporate partners are looking for talent in our communities, and we make sure that our talent that we're presenting to the corporate partner is one that they can utilize and can be productive once they're on that particular site. They take a drug test coming in and a drug test 6 months out prior to going on internship. And we do an extensive background check on our young adults. It's an intense program. Again, they're getting training from our professional training, the life skills, the hard skills, and the soft skills, in addition to taking college academic courses. So they really are honed in on being a better version of themselves so that they can be marketable once they finish our program. Academics, our students can earn up to 30 credit hours within 1 year. At Year Up, you got to think that's a real big advantage for these young adults. They're not only getting the college credits, but they're also getting the life skills that they need to be successful. Some of those skills gaps that we talked about coming out of high school, college readiness, maybe they were born into poverty, maybe they just didn't have access to resources. Well, we bridge that gap there, and then they get a full-time, they have to earn a full-time professional internship in their second 6 months. While they're in our program. Our model is high support, high expectation. On the support side, they get a stipend, they have a coach, they get mentored 3 times a week in our program. And I cannot say that, I think that's the value part when we talk about retention, is that they get one-on-one coaching with a professional about work-life balance, wellness, emotional intelligence, critical thinking skills. A lot of our young adults, they lack the critical thinking skills. Well, we teach that, we employ that in the Year Up model, where they understand how to make good life choices and they're thinking about their future. We have a connection to support services for our students. We have 2 student services managers on most sites, and these student services personnel, they wrap support around our young adults once we bring them into the program. We do a lot of vetting for every young adult that we serve in Year Up. They do an information session, which takes about 45 minutes. Second phase of that is we conduct an interview to see what are the determining factors, what kind of barriers does this may be presented for this young adult prior to coming into Year Up. And we ascertain that information and we transfer that information to our student services managers and then say, you know what, maybe they need transportation. So we have bus passes, which is a big support for our young adults. They may not have the professional clothing. Our young adults have to be professionally dressed 5 days a week. They may not have that. We have a professional clothes closet on all of our sites where we can dress a young adult in a suit or tie and make sure they have the professional attire to be successful without having to break their bank account and go out and spend money to start this program. And in addition to that, we've have housing connections and resources in the community that have helped our young adults to be successful. And then once they're on internship, we show them full support on the internship. Well, we have 2 internship services managers always in connection with the managers on those sites to see, are there any skills gaps? What kind of, how can we enhance our training? Can we enhance our boot camp? What can we do to make sure that we meet the market demands with the talent of our youth that we serve? And finally, the longest phase of our program is career and alumni services, where these young adults have access to a year of professional organization that can help them relocate, help them beef up their resume, their LinkedIn account, and just help them network across the nation to give them more opportunities, which expands their network. Next slide, please. Europe national outcomes. This right here just shows you where we've come as of March of 2020. We've served 29,000 students to date. When I think back to Gerald, when he started Europe back in 2000, less than 20 students to start in that first cohort. And when we look around the nation now, 29,000 students in 20 years is amazing. We're projected to serve at least 5,000 students in 2020. Now this number can increase or decrease based upon the COVID-19 situation we're in, but we're looking at our numbers increasing here because the companies are still desiring the talent that we're training at Europe. We have a 90% graduate placement. Earning salaries across the nation is about $42,000 annually for a Europe graduate after 1 year. And if you trace back to where we're talking about these young adults, when we brought them in, they're 18 to 24 years of age. They may have been, underserved, underemployed, hopeless, didn't have an opportunity, but then after 1 year, their life trajectory just shifted by being in our professional training program. And our outcome of 75% full-time training aligned roles is amazing. That once our students finish, they're either in a full-time position, that's a success. They can also be in college full-time, is also an academic success. They can be hybrid, working and also in college. But we have a 75% success rate coming out of our program after 1 year. And this is a short abbreviated version of what we do at Europe. And right now I am going to transition to my colleague, Sherry, who's going to talk about the virtual spaces.
Yes, thank you, Theo. I appreciate that. So next, we're going to move through these last 2 slides quickly so that we leave time enough for Q&A. We want to talk a little bit about what's happening in our world right now and over the past several weeks, because I know that this has been a difficult time to navigate for nonprofits and educational partners. So as you're probably already experiencing, moving an entire organization to a virtual space, into virtual operations, is quite the endeavor. And it doesn't matter if you're a school district, if you are a workforce training program, or some other boots on the ground nonprofit, it is still a heavy lift. So Europe, along with thousands of other organizations across our nation, is now more than a month into what I've been calling a new abnormal. So we can look back on that process and we can share with you a little bit about what worked. So first area we're going to talk about equipment. Fortunately, assigning laptops and mobile phones to all employees in Europe, that was already a part of our onboarding procedures. So we were already equipped with that. Maintaining flexibility and mobility is critical to our mission. Any Europe employee really should have the capability to work from either the physical site on the college campus or possibly on a job site where an intern has been assigned, or anywhere else that's needed. We also have a matrix structure. So day-to-day operations for us may look very different from your particular organization. It could include working on site with colleagues and with students, but we also have functional counterparts in other states and other cities. We have external partners and supporters within a whole market that we may be serving. And then of course we have members of our centralized teams like IT and marketing, which sit at the national level, and they serve all of our sites. So equipment for our students, however, at the outbreak of COVID-19, that was a different scenario altogether. So our corporate partners really stepped into the gap when it came to providing tech for our students, and they helped provide additional laptops and other resources for our interns who were already working. And then our national teams and local teams worked together to make sure that our students who are still in the learning and development phase here in the Jacksonville area had what they needed as well, because, as we've established, we are working with opportunity youth, and many of them do not have the same assets sitting around at home that possibly you or I would have. Training was another great point at which we had to pivot. Training is a huge part of Europe culture anyways. It's kind of part of our DNA. We not only train and coach America's future workforce, but we also mentor and train each other all the time. We're a feedback culture for sure. So within the first week of the crisis, when orders were filtering down from federal and state agencies about sheltering in place and other measures to be taken, Year Up was diving headfirst into Zoom land. So we were already comfortable with Skype for Business, but we instantly became Zoom experts. And so within that first week and a half, all employees were expected to become Zoom comfortable, whether we were in a primary teaching role or just a support role. We also had site norms that were previously established. So you might call these classroom expectations, depending on your environment, or maybe you refer to these as protocol. We do call them site norms. And for us, that involves professional appearance at all times. It involves readiness, engagement, feedback, positivity, etc. So these norms translated seamlessly into the virtual space, and we just made a few adjustments here and there. So like today, you can see that I'm business casual and I am repping our brand. Theo and Farissa, of course, are dressed to the nines, which is our professional expectations for our students. And typically, we would expect our students to be in blouse and blazer, tie. We don't really ask what's happening on the bottom from the waist down, but I'm sure that you've had a couple of meetings here since COVID broke loose where maybe you're in PJ bottoms. I don't know, but we are definitely professional from the waist up, and just kind of re-emphasizing what we would do if we were in the physical space with our students and expecting them to walk in boardroom ready. Engagement is also a norm of ours. I'll add that real quickly. Students are expected to be on camera. They are expected to mute their microphone when others are speaking. They are expected to put their actual names, screen names, in the window on whatever platform is being used. So screen names like Hot Mama 99, that does not fly with us. We are looking for those real names. We are taking attendance. We have staff members who have different tasks during Zoom calls, and they're looking for students adhering to these site norms because we want those students to be fully present. There's no multitasking tolerated. And with this physical separation that we're experiencing, that engagement is all the more important. So retention, really quickly. Our retention rates, we expected to plummet, right? And I'm sure that many nonprofits were kind of bracing themselves for the same thing. That is just not what's happening with Year Up right now. I am so ecstatic to report that in Jacksonville, our retention rate overall, both for students that are in learning and development and students that are on internship, is right at 82.6%. That is incredible. And then Tampa Bay is showing us up with that. Tampa Bay is at 85% for their learning and development phase and 87% for those on internship. So well above 80% and climbing towards 90, which is a great win, not just for our organization, but for these students whose lives are literally being changed. Let's talk about communication tools very briefly. There are a few org-wide tools that we use in Year Up to promote communication, both internally and externally. I'm sure that you're familiar with several of these. We use Workplace, powered by Facebook. We use Skype for Business. Of course, I mentioned we use Zoom. We also use something called Anytime 360 Feedback, because I did mention we are a feedback culture, so it's really important to us that we are always finding ways to improve. And then we make really great use of group text. So we are definitely going to be able to get in touch with one another. And I think that high touch model that we've been using in our operating procedures is what really helped us in those first 2 weeks of translating and moving into that virtual space. And lastly is the human factor. And what I mean by this is inclusion and diversity. We really embrace diversity and really engage diversity. We also are wrapping our students up in support services. So there's a lot of outside noise that happens, not just during a global pandemic, but every other day of their lives. I mean, as Theo mentioned, we have students who are already parents. We have students who are the breadwinners in their family, and they're working multiple part-time minimum wage jobs to put food on the table. We are serving students who maybe are coming from backgrounds where they have no support at home, or maybe they have been shunned or put out of their housing environments because of who they are, what color their skin is, what orientation they are, you know, whatever is going on in their lives. And these are the students that we serve. And so the human factor is really, really important to us. These students are not just a metric. Even though we have the nice slide with all the metrics, they have names. We care about them. We know who they are. We know what challenges they're facing. We do get into their business, but I think because we're all up in their business is one of the reasons why that wraparound support then turns into these incredible retention rates. So I'm going to now pass it off to Farissa, who's going to talk to you about a few calls to action.
Thank you, Sherry, so much for that. I'm super stoked for all of you all to be joining us. I hear that Twitter is currently going off. Sharon and I are probably getting all the notifications because we monitor our social media. So I want to deep dive into a few different things on how you can have some takeaways to bring back to your organization. If you're anything like me, when I show up to work, I always think about like where was Europe when I was a youth and everything. And this is us more now than the time right now, because there's a lot of seniors graduating. They may not know what their next steps is, for you to definitely spread the word and to help us recruit some students and everything. Like Theo had mentioned, we serve 18 to 24 year olds, and we are all over the state of Florida and national. So if this resonated with you at any given way, please contact us afterwards. Another project that I wanted to highlight, just to kind of help brainstorm what may be going on within your organization, is something that we had to adapt very fast and foresee. And our national leadership kind of made it an imperative decision for us as employees and staff to be a part of what is being foreseen with COVID-19. So we have this project called Project Daylight, where we as an entire organization, every staff member, whether you're in accounting, whether you're in the presence of a student, being a project manager, a program manager, or what have you, we are working in conjunction as a whole to help solve for the job problems that may be foreseen. So there's about 3,000 students in our program currently, and we are all brainstorming ideas on how to connect them to jobs and opportunities moving forward, and for adapting to the nature. So maybe that's something that you may want to consider within your organization, is having those huddles with your teammates and staff to see what ideas you may have, so it doesn't fall solely on one person. Theo definitely mentioned something that I feel like is the heart of our organization, which is mentorship. Mentoring, this is a great opportunity for you to join a program. There's a lot of mentoring programs that are out there in all of our communities. This is a great way to participate and start a program within your organization if you currently don't already have one. I know there's a lot of colleges on here, as well as nonprofit organizations that work hand in hand with youth. So if that's something that you haven't considered, please do so. Within our organization, we just ask our volunteers to commit an hour a week and do some form of well, in this sense, virtual touch point once a month to have meaningful conversation. You never know how impactful a conversation and having somebody in your corner could go. Circles of influence. We believe to lift while you climb. So if you identifying your organization supporter is great, but using this time more than ever to explore ways to bring community leaders, parents, other organizations in your community and companies to advocate on your behalf is incredible. So thinking about and identifying who can you rely on and call for, who you may have not already had a touch point with. Social media. If there ever was a time to leverage social media, now's the time to do so. Content is great and it should always be consistent. However, resharing and leveraging there's a lot of content out there and a lot of us have the same mission and cause. So leveraging other people's content is simply as a reshare will take such a long way, as well as joining in on conversations that are already out there. So utilizing hashtags to go in on somebody on the search page on Instagram or Twitter and joining in on the conversation and leaving your 2 cents could bring you new prospect partners, new students. Just the possibilities are endless. And we also want you all to think about how we all can collaborate collectively. I think a lot of the times we think about networking up and everything of who can we get to that's higher on the totem pole, when in reality, networking linear will take us such a far further in discovering new possibilities and community. It's the joining forces to do things like lunch and learns, guest write-ups, forming task force teams, restating that brainstorming session on who on your team to giving them an opportunity to step up and lead who may not have the opportunity to do so, and then just relying on just the different community networks. And also, I'll leave you with this, is to celebrate each other's wins. Whether through social media, newsletters, emails, word of mouth, it takes very little and it's very effortless to celebrate what we want to see more of. So if anybody, for those who have tweeted us, I'm more than happy to follow you all back and to share those different things and just put out that positivity, like I said, that we want to see more of. So those are a few call to actions for you all to think about, and turning it back over to Sherry.
Okay, Kathy, we are all yours, ready for Q&A.
Wonderful. We're getting so many questions and really great questions coming through the question box. So let's go ahead and get started. Lots of people interested in how are colleges selected, and then related to that, what factors are considered to start a program in a certain area?
Okay, Theo, do you want to take that one? Make sure you're off mute.
Ooh, let me unmute you. There we go.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, I can answer that question for you. How are colleges selected? Well, it's a trifecta has to take place. First, the city has to have the demographics to support our model. That means there has to be opportunity youth in that particular city that really need the Year Up program. Secondly, the corporate partners have to be willing to pay for the talent that we train. And then the college partnership is critical. We want to make sure that the college partner we choose is affordable to that young adult. In addition, can provide the training tracks, the technical skills and the college courses that's built into the curriculum that we train. So those are the 2 critical factors, is number of students in that area, in addition to the training at that particular school, the education degree plans that they offer, and then the corporate partners have to be willing. So I think those 3 put together is what are the deciding factors as to what city and where we locate our programs.
And so that's certainly about how to bring Year Up there. Are there ways that people can take what you all have learned and maybe adapt for their own local community? So some of our communities don't necessarily have those big corporate partners there. How might they still engage with their business partners?
That's a great question, in which we have an initiative from our national office where, our CEO, it's funny that you say that, Gerald Shertavian really wants to take our model and allow others to emulate what we do in the smaller markets. So you can contact Europe nationally. Any one of us can put you with the right person as far as how to get the training, how to emulate what we're doing, our best practices, and that's what we're doing right now. So it's funny that you asked that question, because we're actually talking about transition and expanding and scaling our model up into cities that cannot support.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
Kathy, specifically, we have a model called Europe in a box. It doesn't literally come in a box, but it is more of a what Theo's talking about, where someone could take that model and apply it. We also are looking at other ways to structure programs. We're looking at employers of influence, which means that we would work so closely with that particular corporation that we could possibly be housed within the corporation and work exclusively through their seats that are available for interns. So we've got a couple of different things that are being looked at and considered, especially considered more now that we're in this COVID-19 environment.
Yes.
Yeah, great, thanks. One of the questions Courtney asked is this a grant-funded program? And if so, how can schools apply?
You want me to answer that?
Sure.
We're not a grant-funded program. We're a nonprofit organization, so all of our funding comes from private donors. The corporate partners invest in our training, and then also we go out and we actually, have people that give personal, money fundings to what we do in that particular community. So that's how we're funded, primarily throughout the cities that we're placed in.
Right.
Great.
So we do have corporate engagement teams as well as development teams. And those teams sit at both the national level and the local level. So they are doing that work of bringing in those corporate opportunities and bringing in those donations as well. And as far as applying for the grant, there is no one grant, I guess you would say, though we do chase after certain grant opportunities as a whole organization. And then as far as applying, your students and whatever organization you're in right now could then create a pipeline into Europe. And we certainly welcome that. As Theo mentioned before, our pipeline for talent is quite wide. And so we are pulling students, opportunity youth from lots of different places.
Yeah, that's a great lead into the next question, which is, are students referred from local high schools? I know you mentioned earlier you do get them from some of your community partner organizations, other nonprofits, but are you also pulling them in from local high schools too?
Yes, that's on the recruitment end, and I lead a team of 4 in our market. That's one of our biggest pipelines is our high school talent. So we go to career fairs and we do pull talent from the high schools. It's a value add to the college, for one, because if we're getting that talent and they're going to the college, it helps with retention, it helps with graduation rates. So it's a big win. It's a win-win situation for all of us, but definitely high schools are definitely one of our biggest pipelines in the recruitment funnel.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. Donna is asking, do the students have to reside in Jacksonville, Miami, and Tampa to participate in Florida?
So at this time, pretty much, but I will tell you that, like for Jacksonville, I know that we have students that are driving in from outside of Duval County, correct, Theo? I'm pretty sure.
Correct.
Yes,
correct.
and then Farissa, you have several, right, that are coming from neighboring counties.
Neighbor counties. We even had one student relocate her whole life down here and stuff from up north. So like, students are hungry for the opportunity, and it definitely just shows a level of grit and determination that we also look for in a student, and everything of how are they willing to invest a year within themselves. So our goal is to be everywhere and everything, and I think that we are looking for those efforts to move forward. But yeah, we do get students from different places, but their commitment for the program will require them to be in one of the locations.
Yes, and I would like to add to that is they have to be mindful that students can attend our program, but the contract is really what drives it. They have to show up on time. We're a time management system. We start at 8:30 our programming, and let's say if they're late 8:35, that's a 10-point infraction from that 150 points. And unfortunately, if they're coming from a long distance, the only barrier is transportation and being on time from students that are not in those particular cities. And if a student gets down to 0 points, they fire themselves automatically from the program because of the contract. You know, the points either go up or down. And that's the only barrier that I've seen for students that are outside the general market where the training is taking place, is that they may have those time constraints when it comes to the contract.
Okay, great. Suzanne's asking if you can share a little bit more about the internship programs, in particular, recruiting those community partners, forming those relationships. One piece of this that I wanted to encourage you to share is I know you train the managers at your corporate partner sites on effectively managing, and helping to develop this young talent too. So if you can talk a little bit about both of those.
Yeah, I'll start, and then please, first and Theo, add what I leave off. But our corporate engagement team, they are the ones that are on the front lines for going out and not only recruiting new partners, but also nurturing those relationships and maintaining those relationships that we already have. So here in the Jacksonville market, Bank of America is our largest internship supporter. The majority of our seats are with the Bank of America, but we also have several others, like Theo mentioned before, JP Morgan Chase, Merrill Lynch, Amazon, and I mean, a bunch more that I can't even think of right now. And so those internship partners, they are paying a hefty fee per intern. So we're talking that it takes about $27,000 to commit to supporting an intern. And that commitment level then spans their whole year-long support. So they're not just really engaging at that commitment level to get an intern for 6 months. What they're really doing is they are paying for the training that we provide and all of the prep that goes into making them internship ready. And then once they step onto the job site, they actually put all of that into action and are with that internship partner for about 6 months. The really cool thing, we talk about conversion. You'll hear us say that word a lot. Conversion typically happens at the end of the 6 months, but not always. A lot of times, our interns will so impress our corporate partners that they will convert them in the middle of the 6-month period to a new hire. Yeah, so what did I leave out? Anything else?
I think you did a great job with that. And again, as Sherry mentioned, their corporate partners, they pay $27,500 per student we train. So you're talking about 80 students where we train in Jacksonville. That's about $2.2 million that invested. So there is a healthy collaboration where we're sharing information constantly with each other so that our program model is meeting the standards of what they're looking for in the intern, and also that they understand who we serve versus, who they've accustomed to building. So we have a healthy communication and dialogue with all of our corporate partners. And as Sherry mentioned, the ultimate goal is to convert these young adults to a full-time career, which takes them from poverty to a life where they haven't had before, and just gives them upward mobility throughout. So it's a real good dialogue where we're constantly in communication with each other, with the program model, to make sure that we're training to what the corporate partners needs, and we match that talent up. And the students go and showcase their talents once they finish our learning and development phase.
Yeah. That communication, by the way, Kathy, that happens on a daily basis. Yes. So our CE team, our corporate engagement team, they literally, and our internships services management team, they are in constant communication with the managers and supervisors of our students. We know everything that is happening when it happens. That's key. So I should mention that as well.
Yeah, so providing that ongoing support to that corporate client, considering they are paying, so much for this. One of the folks asked, it seems like a lot of your corporate partners are in finance and banking. Do you have corporate partners outside of the finance and banking industry?
Absolutely. Yeah. even in Tampa, we have a very diverse market. So outside of the banking, we have organizations like Nielsen, Valley Living. We have insurance companies like New York Life. So there's a bunch of, it doesn't necessarily have to be finance banking, and as well as not only in our markets in Florida, but we also have like relationships with Facebook and different other corporate partners that are in all different types of spaces. Harvard University is one of the partners, I believe, in down in South Florida. There's a lot of university partners as well. So it isn't just, I know we talked briefly about the amount of money that the corporate partners take on. It's actually already embedded in most company and organizations to do an onboarding training. So it actually is an easier ask because they already factor that into their organization budget to train their incoming onboarding support.
Great,
And
thanks.
we also, that's great for us. So we also have IT and cybersecurity in certain markets. So it depends on the market demand in that particular city. I know in the Jacksonville market, we're looking at healthcare, probably going to Florida Blue. So we're in constant contact with them as of right now to maybe see if we can leverage an opportunity there. But as of right now, it depends on the market demand in that city as to what's being offered. But we do offer different tracks, especially training.
Great, thanks, Theo. I'm just letting everyone know we've got about 5 minutes left. There's tons of questions still in the queue. So our guest presenters have agreed to stay on. I know some of you will need to leave us at the 11 o'clock hour, but for those of you who can stay on longer, please know we're gonna keep trying to answer more of those questions because I'm so excited to see there's so much interest here. Okay, next question. Rosalia, I believe is how I pronounce her name. What curriculum, she's asking, what curriculum do you use to train your program personnel?
So it's our curriculum. We pull from a couple of different places, but Theo, I don't know if you want to talk more about that, but it's pretty much, I mean, we've been doing this for 20 years. So it has become year up curriculum, which is one of the reasons why we are opening up the idea of making that available to other folks who want to replicate and using that model and using that curriculum.
Yes, and I'll add on to that. You know, again, with our curriculum, we incorporate life skills, hard skills, and soft skills. And these are best practices that have been utilized over time since 2000. So year up, we've constantly looking at ways to improve. We've been evolving since 2000. So we have our own curriculum, which is built into that is coaching. Each week we have a theme of the week. It can be on persistence. It can be on growth mindset, how to build your professional brand. So we're really creating a growth mindset with our young adults to where they have to make a quick pivot. If they're coming from high school at 18 years of age, how do you get them engaged in 6 months to be ready for internship when they may have been skipping high school, not going to classes, not vested fully in their education, but now all of a sudden you got them in a professional model. So it's really centered and it's really honed in on making sure we get their mindset correct first up in the beginning of the initially in the program, and then we wrap support around them as that curriculum builds out. So we've really studied this model for years. So it's our own model that we, our curriculum that we utilize here, and it's in alignment with the corporate partners in that city. Again, we utilize the feedback from our partners. So what do you need from our talent? You know, if you're paying this, tell us what do you need, and we build that curriculum out around those specific needs.
Right.
John is asking if you offer services in Northwest Florida, and my understanding is no at this point. From what I've heard you say earlier, though, if there's the right conditions, meaning a state college partner, you know, some corporate business leaders and organizations who are willing to engage and make this kind of investment, you know, it's my understanding Europe is open to continuing to expand, assuming the conditions are there, correct?
Yes, that is correct. And I will just add that even though we don't have a presence in the Panhandle right now, I can tell you our story for Jacksonville was that about 5 years ago, there was someone, an investor living in Ponte Vedra, who became aware of Europe and the model and the outcomes and the mission and the core values, and was so moved that he worked with our national teams and personally invested those startup funds to start Jacksonville. So we are now at the 5-year mark for Jacksonville, whereas the organization org-wide, we're at 20 years. So this was a very celebratory year right before COVID happened, but we were celebrating lots of milestones. But so yeah, that's just to say that it can happen, and it's also to say that if you don't do the model where we are paired with that on-site with that college, we are also, as we mentioned, Europe in a box, we're also looking at other ways to house the program. So absolutely, we'd be willing to speak with people about those possibilities.
You know, great response, Sherry. You're talking about Northwest Florida. I'm a graduate of Florida A&M, like Farissa, you know, and I know Tallahassee. I went there. That's a city that really needs it. I've had people reach out to me here and say, hey, how can we get it here? And I've shared that exact same information with them. But we do have Europe in a box, and now we're looking at scaling up and actually showcasing what we do with other organizations, because it's all about community. How can we be effective in our own communities, and how can we share our best practices out with everyone? Because we know we can't serve every opportunity youth, you know, in the nation by ourselves. It really takes community partners. It takes all of us to be all hands on deck to have an impact in our opportunity youth across this nation.
Absolutely, which is part of why we wanted to share your great work with everyone and hopefully inspire them to begin to lay those conditions and at a minimum, you know, embrace some of the practices. James is asking, you mentioned background checks. Do you work with youth that have had some legal hiccups in their past as well?
I can, anyone, you all want to take that, or I can take that one?
I'll let you take that, Theo, because, you know, admissions, that's a lot of that happens in that admissions phase of things. So, yeah.
Yes, admissions, we do the interview. We vet our students for need, interest, readiness to make sure that they're ready. A lot of them are hungry. They really want the opportunity. They're highly interested in going on the internship and getting more academic, you know, education. And then also the key is, are they ready? Can we serve these young adults? In the banking industry, depending on if their student has a felony background, whatever it may exclude them from an opportunity there. However, with certain other entities, they may be able to take a student with a background. However, felonies is one of the things that have been an inhibitor for some of our young adults to transition to a corporate internship seat. However, we have placed students with, you know, misdemeanors on internship seats. It all depends on the corporate partner and what their practices are as far as who they can hire on or bring on internship.
I'll just add this. We've also had several students that have come out of the foster care system. In fact, the class that just graduated in January, our student speaker, she was elected among her peers to speak at graduation on behalf of the entire class. She had been in the foster care system since she was a baby, and she is an amazing person, an amazing student. She's giving back. She's landed an amazing job. And so these are the students that we're serving. So Theo is right. Bankers, they get a little nervous about that background check. It is necessary, but that doesn't mean that we can't find a seat with one of our other internship partners.
And I can tell you that we're also in conversation with our partners to say, hey, you know, these students 17 years of age, they shouldn't be penalized for the rest of their life. What can we do? Can you create new positions at your particular institution where they may be able to come in, and maybe they're not working with money, for example. However, what can we do to collaborate and serve these young adults that may have made a mistake when they were 17, maybe 18, and, you know, they paid their dues. However, they just need another opportunity where we can, you know, so we're in negotiations with those particular partners right now.
I love that, because I do think that's a piece of this, is how do we help our employers embrace, you know, their role in this work. And sometimes it is adjusting hiring policies, because I know I don't want to be judged on my worst day. I don't think most people want to be judged on their worst day. So how do we move past that? Okay, great. So one of the questions is from Donna. Has the program ever been utilized specifically with manufacturing companies within a certain area?
Not in the Jacksonville market. So I don't, Farissa, Theo, do you have any?
So not in Florida, though I do know we're exploring all possibilities, but in other markets, they have and stuff. It has been done.
And I can tell you this, it hasn't been heavy at Europe in the manufacturing area, but that's something we're looking at. They're in talks with that. I can tell you supply chain is really big. You know, it's a lot of movement. That's one of the industries over the next 5 years is projected to really grow. So we're looking at supply chain opportunities right now as we speak.
Yeah,
Great.
so for Jacksonville, we are a port city. So logistics is a big thing for us here, and so our CE team is considering and trying to get connected with those potential employers as well. And remember, when you have a business track and an IT track, you could really work in any industry. I mean, you could do IT for anybody because everybody needs IT.
Right, great point. So, you know, where they start doesn't necessarily dictate where they end. Yeah, great point. Does the program accept undocumented students?
Now, they have to have a visa permit to be able to work. Our corporate partners, they're looking to transition and convert these young adults off of internship to a full-time paying job. So undocumented DACA students, you know, depends on the paperwork and where they are in that particular process as to how we can bring them on. So their paperwork and their status really impacts on the admissions end who we can bring into the program.
Okay, very good. With Donna's asking, with Europe in a box, does that mean you are seeking other colleges to participate and establish a program? So again, it sounds like you're open to it as long as the market conditions support it.
Right, and all of that is still in development. So we haven't released it really yet. We are kind of sharing that with you in anticipation of that rollout. So absolutely, and we would welcome anyone who wants to share contact information with us, and we can put you on a list to be notified when we do have that rollout happening or when more information is available. Because I feel really bad that I don't have all those details for you now.
And we are sharing your email addresses on the screen, so folks feel free to email any one of our presenters and you know, engage in a conversation offline. Okay, Natalie is asking, do students sign up once they are enrolled in the college? I'm assuming they join Europe first and then enroll in the college where it's situated, but I could be wrong.
It happens both ways, right, Theo?
Okay.
Yes, it happens both ways with us on the admissions end. Sometimes we've had students that may have been in college and they shopped out, you know, and they hear about Europe and say, wow, this is amazing. So they readmit. So we can bring them in and do our process first, or they could be a part of the college and have that process done. However, a student cannot be a Europe student without being a student at that particular college in that city. So I can't bring a student in and train them in Europe or Jacksonville without them being a part of Florida State College of Jacksonville, and likewise for Tampa and Miami. But we can reverse each process, but we got to make sure that both things are done prior to us locking that class and enrolling and starting our training.
Okay.
Some of our students have already started earning college credits, so they may even be able to complete their degree during the 1 year that they're with us. Others have just started it for the first time. And so they are not quite far enough along in the number of credits that they've earned to be able to also earn their AA by the time they complete the 1 year program. So it just depends on the situation.
Rosalia is asking, are high schools referring seniors who have graduated, or are the high school students still in high school? I'm assuming Opportunity Youth typically are students who are not in school and not working, but you clarify.
Yeah, those are Opportunity Youth. And also we're talking about the high schools, but because of the partnerships that we have in these particular cities with the high schools, certain programs in the high schools, like 5,000 Role Models of Excellence, they understand who we serve and they see this talent. So they'll refer those pipelines of students to us. You know, you have Future Business Leaders of America. They're already grooming students to go into business degrees. So they know Europe is in this particular city. They'll refer students. There's also programs such as AVID. in our high schools. Abbott gives them the career readiness skills to be successful. So we get pipelines from all the senior high school counselors. They'll identify students, know who's been successful from that school, and they say, wow, they see that talent and they refer that to us. So it's all a collaborative effort from everyone, not just the ones that's 18 to 24 is graduated, working dead-end jobs, trying to make ends meet. We're also looking at those high school seniors too. Yes.
Okay.
And
good.
every employee of Year Up is technically an admissions officer, right? We're all trying to help Theo's team.
I love Chick-fil-A because they send us great talent. My pleasure.
Donna shares, I see this as a gap year for high school seniors to engage in the program to build soft skills and engage in the internships and then work in, lead into the workplace. Once they're in the internship for 6 months, is that, part of a full-time job with a salary from the company, or are they holding other jobs in addition to the internship?
So that is really up to them if they're holding additional jobs, but we do recommend that they make work their new favorite, right? Like in ELF. So the internship seat is their priority, and they are expected to maintain their college classes as well. So, they may be doing that in the evening, which leaves very little space then for an additional part-time employment. Some still maintain that though on weekends. And they do continue to receive that stipend. So Theo referred to that briefly. And Theo, if you want to go back over those numbers again about the difference between learning and development and internship.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the first 6 months in the learning and development, they're taking college classes with the college, and they're also getting training. So the stipend is $50 per week, $100 biweekly. On internship, they're getting a stipend of $150 per week, which is $300 biweekly. And again, they're working a full-time job. So they're out there in their second semester in college. They're 18, 19, 20 years of age. They're working next to someone with bachelor's degrees, master's degrees. They're fitting in. So they're really applying the training that they get. And they're utilizing all of the skills that we train them to possibly convert to a full-time career. So they're hungry for it. And again, some of these young adults that we serve, they have families, single mothers prior to coming into Europe. So they're still maybe working a part-time job after those 40 hours. I'm on the weekends, in the evenings. We've served homeless students. So it all depends on the situation of those young adults. I remember a young lady that went through our program. She worked 2 additional jobs on top of her internship. And she graduated and also got converted to a $45,000 job, career after completing her internship. So there are some tremendous success stories that we see with the amount of grit that these young adults show, but it all depends on a per basis, which ones are working, which ones are not.
And I would really encourage anyone to go to our social media sites. If you go to Year Up's YouTube channel, there are several videos there that show you a glimpse into these students' lives. And we're going to share a couple of links with you after as a follow-up to the webinar. And I really encourage you to watch those videos. It gives you a better sense of the whole picture.
Great. These are related. So George is asking, what are the 5 career pathways Year Up supports? And then sort of related to that, people are trying to get a sense of what are these entry-level positions that companies are engaging these students in?
Okay. You want it? I can take it. All right.
What do you
add on to it?
And then Farissa, if you'll add on and talk about what some of those entry-level seats look like in Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Theo, do you mind going over the tracks?
Yes. Yeah, so we offer business, IT. Some of those are our specialty tracks, okay, career pathways. Now, remember, a lot of our entry-level roles are customer service related roles. Want to make sure you understand that. Help desk, for example, IT is help desk support. So they're not building, they're not programmers, but they're actually going and resetting passwords, actually helping customers with their accounts, navigating those accounts. Those are particular tracks that we offer. Then business operations, client services, right? You can also have bank teller, which is also some of the tracks that we offer right here. So some of those are face-to-face, some of those are virtual. I'm assuming we will definitely have more virtual opportunities in those particular areas, but everything is centered around business, IT, customer service, client services, and also such as things such as cybersecurity, depending on the markets that we have. Those are the particular tracks that we offer those areas in right now.
And I just want to add on too, like, because of just the success of the program, and it really goes down to our students who are interning, we found that some of our corporate partners are expounding upon. So we have students who may have been like customer service and all that. We now have seats and opportunities for our students to be project managers and to work on, you know, a good bulk of it. We have 2 students actually are working with DTCC, which deals a lot with Wall Street. We actually have a student who graduated in our first class who went from working at Chick-fil-A to working at Nielsen, and is making $55,000. So talk about going from minimum wage to meaningful career. He was an IT support role, and now has a higher role on his team because he added so much value. We've had students who created jobs because they were so good at just their IT role or their business role, and everyone was like, oh wait, you're actually, because you're adding value, because you're seeing things we're not seeing, we're going to give you a whole different job title. So we've had a lot of different student success stories within organizations.
Great example. Natalie's asking, how do you determine whether a student would succeed in this program in order to refer a student to the program? So what kind of traits, characteristics, skills, attitude are you looking for?
That's definitely an admissions question, because we interview, we see these students face to face on the front end. We look at need, interest, readiness. One of the things we look at is, you're talking about attitude. Are they teachable? Are they coachable? Are they trainable? Do they have a good attitude? So I'm not looking for the one who necessarily was the smartest one in the school. If you have a bad attitude, they may not be a good fit for our corporate partners. But those are attributes. And the readiness factors. Can they handle our curriculum? Remember, they're taking college classes and getting professional training at the same time during the first 6 months. So we look at PERT scores, SAT scores, ACT scores. The biggest factors that we look at from the readiness factors is their reading and writing scores. Are they at college level? They may need remediation. I've had students that they want to do the program, highly interested, really need it. However, if we put them in those classes, they fail those courses, they lose their financial aid, we did them a disservice. So my job is to make sure if they need remediation, we'll tee them up with 1 semester of remedial courses first, and then the second term, bring them into our next cohort of classes. So we never say no to these young adults. We say it may not just be the right time. However, we want to make sure we set you up for success. But those readiness factors around reading and writing, because they're communicating to customers, clients, can they speak? Do they have the acumen to learn the professional training, the technical skills to be successful in internship? So we identify all that within the interview process to make sure that they're successful.
Okay, George is asking, are students guided to acquire certificates or an AA?
That is amazing. I mean, these are some great questions. I'm telling you, we're an hour and 13 minutes in, and we still have over 100 people. So I love this. But, what they do is they're on the tracks where, for us, we're doing business and IT. They earn certification. So we'll have them under AA or AS degree, associate in science degrees. It depends on what they're trying to do. If they want to earn certifications, we'll have them under the associate in science degree, and then they can earn certifications in business operations, business management. It's all built within the degree plan. So by the time they finish 1 year, they've earned 2 certificates. In addition, they've got the stipend, they have the support. And what we have at FSCJ, Florida State Colleges, we have an articulation agreement with the college. We say, our young adults are in a business environment all day. They're speaking, they're doing presentations. How about offering them articulated credits after they complete 1 year? So any student that's in our program after 1 year, they earn 12 free credit hours that's added to their transcript just by being a graduate of Year Up. They get credits for intro to business, intro to speech communications, human relations in business, and SLS, which is strategies for success. So they earn 12 credit hours that's just given to them. And that's saving them time, energy, money, book fees. It's just a tremendous investment with the college partner to pour back into our students too.
Wonderful. Vivian is, oh, I'm sorry. Actually, Donna's asking, what does a typical day look like for a Europe student?
So it depends on the day of the week. And it also depends on the site. We're all on slightly different schedules, but for the most part, everybody has a what we call Monday morning kickoff, bright and early on Monday mornings. And then we almost all end the week on Fridays with what we call Friday feedback. So in between there, it may look a little different from site to site across the nation, but typically these students are reporting to us early in the morning by 8:30. Usually, sometimes earlier than that if their coach has scheduled a one-on-one session with them and that was the only time that was available. And then they are in programming with us and then they're going to classes. Theo, Farissa, I'm not sure exactly what it looks like because remember, I'm externally facing, so my job's a little different, but I think that usually around 3 in the afternoon that a lot of them are transitioning off campus to jobs or whatever for learning and development.
The program model is from 8:30 to 2:30 Monday through Thursday in Jacksonville, 8:30 to 12:30 on Friday. So all of our students' classes are cohorted. So they take about 4 to 5 classes with their particular track, either business or IT with the college partner, and they take all their courses together. So you'll always have Europe students with each other. They have independent group coaching. They also have independent study. And then each student in our program is assigned an accountability partner, which is amazing, so they keep each other up. And they're all, iron sharpens iron is our philosophy. So they're with each other, but 8:30 to 2:30, their college classes is done, their training is done. So after 2:30, they can go on to their regular life, whether they have their mother, whether they have another job that they're going to. But we're a program that does not monopolize their entire day. And that's what I love about what we do. They have all of their training and college courses done by 2:30 at the latest, any day of the week.
Great. Vivian is asking, are you recruiting students prior to graduation? I believe you said you were. And then related, do you assist students with special needs?
We recruit students prior to graduation. I love recruiting students before graduation because I get to have that conversation with them. Have you applied for financial aid, right? And have you done all the necessary paperwork to be a student at the college? So yes, we recruit prior to that. And we also tee them up on do well on your SAT, ACT. If not, your entrance exam at our college, which is called a PERT. Entrance exam to make sure you're ready to start our program. And we do accommodate those students. I'm interviewing students right now who they're graduating in a few weeks, but I've already teed them up where they're already conditionally accepted into the program, contingent upon them graduating, contingent upon them having their readiness scores to be able to start. You also had a second tier part of that question about special needs. Again, we've served students that have had special needs in our program. So, we're a fair opportunity. We believe in equality and for all of the young adults that we bring in, we just have to make sure we're mindful about matching that young adult up with the talent with our corporate partner. So we're very intentional about who we bring in and making sure we can accommodate and wrap the support around those needs so that when they do transition to internship, those young adults have a fair chance to be successful. And also have a positive outcome.
Great. George is wondering what % of graduates choose to continue in college at the end of the year?
These
are some phenomenal questions.
They have to have a secondary education plan in place when they leave us. And one of the beautiful things about this model is that when we pair up with these corporate partners have like tuition reimbursement plans. So, we help facilitate what's happening in this first year of their college education. And then from that point on, once they secure that job, once they're converted, they're going to be with an employer who also values education and is going to help make it more feasible for them to continue that education.
And, that's a great point, Sherry. And I can tell you our CEO, Gerald Shartavian, he's a Harvard graduate. So he values education. So we're an education premise program. Our stipend is an educational stipend. So everything is built around education. So we're not coming under the premise where we're training them just to go to a career, forget about education. We understand that their upward mobility is based upon how much education they gain. So take advantage of the employer, tuition reimbursement, utilize all those resources to further your education, also give you a chance to move upwards within that organization or with other organizations outside of that.
That's part of what I love about this. Go ahead,
And can I
Teresa.
just add one thing too? Just the success of this program, because we've been around for 20 years, we see alumni across our nation who have scaled to being VPs of corporate organizations, starting their own business, buying homes. So the wraparound services don't just stop from like where your next job is. There's support even of getting students the knowledge of what it's like to buy your first house or get legal advice. Like we really, I love Europe because they really think about the holistic approach of the livelihood of our students post-graduation. So to see our students like achieve master degrees and go above and beyond is so encouraging. Like it's such a joy to work for this organization. Witness that.
Well, and I had the pleasure of being at the first graduation in Tampa Bay for the inaugural class. And one of the things that I loved about that, which you touched on very briefly earlier, the lift while you climb, that once those students graduate, they then have to take an oath that they're gonna be there to continue to develop those next cohorts of talents. And as the example you just gave is great, as they become senior leaders in organizations someday, that they remember that the support they were given and they pay it forward essentially. So great example. Donna's asking, what is the cost of a local state college to commit to Europe and or purchase the curriculum? We have a similar program at our state college that prepares students for college or vocational school, but does not link them to internships. Could this program work alongside this type of a program?
I will say, Theo, correct me if I'm wrong, that the college is not purchasing per se anything from us. What they are doing is they are providing space. So we have square footage where we like take up a whole floor of one of their buildings, I guess you would say. And then they are also supporting us in other ways. As Theo mentioned before, they're making sure that we can move our students in cohorts. So we're actually sitting in on planning meetings about when classes are being offered, at what times and which classes, to make sure that it aligns with what our tracks require of our students. So we are very closely linked to the leadership of our college partners.
Absolutely, that's a great point. And in addition to that, the professors and instructors that teach our students, we make sure we're linked into that. So when we make schedules out, we want to make sure that our students are in the right classes with instructors that know who we serve and the population that we serve. So it's a great collaboration, constant communication with leadership at the college. So, the value add is at Europe, college hosts us. So, what our value add to them is we're going to bring in talent to the school that we're training them, but also it's going to help retention rates and graduation rates. And you talk about FTE and the amount of funding that our schools are getting, the colleges are getting, it's a major, major impact. So that's our value add to our institution. You're on mute.
Oh, thank you. I'm looking at our time and I'm looking at the remaining questions. A lot of them relate to you reaching into specific areas and or wanting to connect with you directly. So their email addresses are on the screen. Those of you who have asked questions that have not been answered yet, I will connect you directly to them so you can get those questions answered. Very briefly, for those who are, thanks so much to all of you who have stayed on the call. We have an upcoming webinar next week, Partnering for Success, Creating Educational Alignment that works with the National Post-Secondary Strategy Institute, national experts in that space. Super excited. And I encourage you, if you're not already a subscriber of FCAN, to do so. That way you'll be in the know of all the policy papers and webinars and other types of activities that are coming up. So grateful to Theo, Farisa, and Sherry for sharing, helping us understand more about how we can help the Opportunity Youth move forward. They, you have given us so many great examples of these students have a bright future as long as we can provide the right kinds of support and help connect the dots to that future career. So thank you so much for spending your time with us today and sharing your expertise. And thank you to everyone who stuck around on the call. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe out there, and we'll hopefully see you soon. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.